It's Abby, and this is my health journey. Today, we're going to be talking about codependency. Oftentimes, culturally, codependency is a term that gets thrown around if there's a couple that is always spending time together and always being together. But that's not actually what codependency is. Codependency is something that I struggled with a lot. I didn't even realize at the time that I was struggling with codependency because of the cultural definition. I had always been told, well, you guys are all always together, so therefore you're codependent. I was like, well, not really. Like, I can live my life without him, whoever that him was, or them, whoever that them was. But I was like, so I'm not codependent. But once I actually learned what the definition of codependency was, I realized I definitely had some issues with it. The definition of codependency is excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a person or partner. And you may be thinking, well, yeah, that's exactly what I thought codependency was. However, the ending of that definition is especially one that has an illness or addiction. This definition can be broken down into threefold. The first fold is going to be the person with the addiction having a psychological or emotional dependence on the person that we're going to refer to as the healthy person. Not saying that they are healthy, but just the person without the addiction or illness. It's just an easier term to use. So the first fold of that is the person with the sickness or the addiction is having a reliance on the healthy person in order for them to be who pulls them away from or takes care of them or does all of the successive things in their life so that they themselves don't have to take any responsibility. The second fold of that is being the healthy person. You can be the healthy person without being codependent, but the twofold definition of this is being the healthy person and feeling like you have to control either the environment of the sick person or the environment of the person that is struggling with an addiction. And a threefold portion of this does not actually refer to the whole definition, only the first part of the definition. And this is someone who doesn't feel like they are getting a specific aspect of their life fulfilled by the person that is supposed to fulfill it. And so they're looking to someone else, whether that is a coworker, another family member, or even a friend, to fill that void that is not being filled by the person in their life that is supposed to fill it. I'm going to be referring to these three folds as number 1, number 2, and number 3 throughout the rest of the video to make the explanation easier on my part. It is difficult, but recognizing tendencies towards codependencies is essential for healthy relationships. Oftentimes, if not all the time, codependency issues stem from a lack of feeling in control. And so oftentimes they can come across as wanting to be in control, whether that looks like being number 1 and feeling like you don't have any control of your addiction or your sickness, and so you are trying to control the other person that you're codependent on. Or if you are number 2, this can look like trying to control the decisions or the habits of the person with the addiction or the person with the illness that you are living with. And if you're person number 3, this can look like trying to control or manipulate your spouse into giving you the affirmation that you need, or control or manipulate those around you into giving you that affirmation that you don't feel like you're receiving from your spouse. It's very important to note though, you actually can have healthy relationships even if you have tendencies towards codependency. It does not negate the fact that your relationship can be healthy. Just removing those tendencies and getting them out of the way will make the relationship healthier and stronger in the end. The first step in getting rid of codependency is actually recognizing your codependency tendencies. This can take a lot of intentionality because oftentimes those tendencies become rather habitual because it's something that we do every day. So some examples of this might be if you are someone that falls into the category of number 1, being the person that has the addiction. This could look like you wanting to go to the bar and expecting your partner or the person that you're codependent on to take away your keys rather than having the self-reliance to put them somewhere or not go yourself. If you fall into the category of number 2, that would be the person who is codependent on the person with the addiction or illness. You would be the person that would take away the keys rather than giving that person the ability to choose for themselves what it is that they're going to do. And if you fall into category number 3, an example of this could be that rather than going to your spouse when you're feeling unattractive or feeling down, you call up a coworker, or you go flirt with a coworker, or you call up a friend in order for them to fill the void that your spouse should be filling. Step 2 is realizing you don't have control. This can be really hard, but the reality is you can never be in control of another person's actions or decisions. As much as you may feel, based off of little actions that you take, that you are in control of them, you can never truly be in control. And as much as you are doing those little actions, feeling like you're helping, it actually gets in the way of the person with the addiction being able to heal because they're never able to deal with the root of the issue. If a person is sick, you may feel like you need to overly help them. But in the nursing field, we try to do something called promoting autonomy. What that looks like logistically is we allow patients to do as much as they can for themselves so that they don't become dependent on us to do them. So even if a patient looks like they're really struggling to feed themselves, are they able to actually feed themselves? And if they are, I don't personally step in to do that action for them because then they become dependent on me to continually do it for them rather than pushing themselves to do something that they are able to do. Step 3, taking steps towards getting rid of your codependency tendencies. You don't have to take big steps at first. This can start off very, very small because they are habitual and they're really hard to get rid of. If you are Number 1, if you're one of the people that is struggling with an addiction or illness, say for example, you are having a difficult time feeling like unless your healthy person is close by, you're unable to do specific tasks or you're unable to overcome your addiction or you're unable to not fall into that addiction. This could look like just taking 5-10 minutes, not even that long, away from your healthy person in order to be able to prove to yourself and choose for yourself to make those decisions or to do that action. If you fall into the category of number 2 of being that healthy person and feeling like you have to do everything and control the environment of the person that is sick or the person that has issues with addiction, this can look like taking time to step away and not be by their side all the time, even if it's just 15-30 minutes away from the house, so that you can have that distance from them, or even being in the house and just not being by their side and just taking that time to get that distance. Even if they do fall, that's okay. You have to remember you can't control their decisions, and ultimately it's not your fault. Their addiction, their decision, their sickness is on them. And whatever they choose to do with it, you can't control it. And even if that looks like succumbing to that, or say if they have diabetes and that's the sickness that they're dealing with and they choose to eat a food that they shouldn't, that's not your place to control it, and it's also not your fault if they choose to succumb to it. If you're number 3 and you are trying to fill your void in somebody else, this could look like being super intentional and calling your spouse or talking to your partner and saying, hey, I'm not feeling beautiful today. I'm not feeling attractive today. Can you come and can you fill that void, rather than calling up that coworker or that friend that you look to fill that void. Sometimes you're not the codependent one, but you are the person that someone else is codependent on. And this can be an issue. So the biggest thing that you can do here is by setting boundaries. I will give 2 examples of this. So the first one is not from my life, but say you have someone that is calling you and constantly wanting to talk to you or vent to you or tell you things, say at like 2 o'clock in the morning, or just kind of like in absurd hours of the day. or if someone is calling you too frequently. What you can do in this example is you can start to set boundaries on the time that they are allowed to call and be like, hey, I would love to talk to you, love to hear from you. If you're having issues, you're free to call me, but let's call maybe only once a week instead of having you call every single day. Or please don't call me after 9 p.m. So setting up little boundaries is a good way of showing to the codependent person, like, hey, I'm not going to be that thing or that person that is available for you at all times. A second example of this is people that want to blame you for their decision making and be like, well, if you hadn't have done this, then I wouldn't have drank, or if you hadn't have done this, then I wouldn't have eaten. And a personal example of this in my life is I had a patient who was perpetually eating Twinkies, even though his blood sugar was through the roof, like way too high. And we told him, like, hey, if you keep eating Twinkies, you are going to kill yourself, basically. And I walked in his room at one point and he was talking on the phone to his wife, and he said, can you believe it? This nurse is making me have diabetes because she's not taking away my Twinkies. And there was no personal responsibility for the fact that he was literally eating himself to death. So oftentimes people will want to do that. They'll want to put the blame on you. They'll want to make you the person that is forcing them to do these things and they're the victim. Don't let people do that. You're not the problem. It is not your job to control them. It's not your job to put up these boundaries for them. It is your job as a loving, kind person to be there for them and to love them in the midst of that. But that doesn't mean that you have to let them overstep your boundaries or trample on you or allow them to blame you for things that are clearly not your problem. I know this is a hard topic, and this video has barely scratched the surface of it, but I hope that it at least helps to shed some light on the topic. If this is something that you are really struggling with, whether you are in any of the threefold definitions of codependency, I'm not a therapist, so if this is something that you really feel like you need help with, a therapist or a counselor would be a great option, because they can help you not only to identify your codependency tendencies, but they can also help you to give guidelines on the best way to get out of those tendencies. Another thing that really helped me was there's a book by Melody Beattie, and it is called Codependent No More. It comes alongside with a workbook that you can also do. It was super helpful for me in my journey of being set free from codependency, and I highly recommend it to you guys. I will leave a link to it in the description below. Addressing codependency can be very difficult and very uncomfortable, and it's something that I still have to be very intentional about in my life to address, because there are random flare-ups that happen where I don't even realize that I'm being codependent, and I am. And so it's something that I have to be very intentional to address. I promise this will lead to a healthier, happier mind space for you, of not constantly having to worry and not constantly having to focus on those. And oftentimes those are actually like warning flags that I get in my brain where I'm like, why am I so stressed out? And then I'm like, oh, it's because I'm falling back into my codependency habits. And when I go back to not being codependent, it actually leads to me having a healthier, happier mind space, and I'm able to focus on the other things in my life that deserve my attention and respect. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I would love to see you guys all again next week. All right, bye.